Hello there and welcome. It's Psychic Cynthia here, Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killion. And welcome to your cosmic update for Friday, August 7th. And actually this update is covering the week ahead. So covering the week of Monday, what would that be? Monday, August 10th through Sunday, August 16th, although we might talk a bit about this weekend too. So welcome, fellow stargazers and followers of the cosmic way. And so we're coming up on some shifts this week, and one of those shifts that I want to talk about is Venus. Those of you who've been following the cosmic energies might know that Venus was retrograde earlier this summer. Now it's not retrograde anymore, and it's cleared the shadow and all of that, which is good news. But because it had spent, a considerable amount of time in retrograde, it also stayed in one sign for a long time. So it actually was, Venus had been in Gemini for about 4 months earlier this year. And this week, I believe it is on Tuesday, it's going to be today, the day that you're going to watch this video, Friday, August 7th, it's going to enter Cancer. So it's going to change signs. And Venus is the feminine principle. Actually, it's the attraction principle and the principle of beauty and what we value and pleasure. And it does have sort of a tie-in with romance too. It's certainly not the only romantic planet, but it definitely, it's about our connections and our partnerships and what we value, what we find beautiful and pleasurable, our aesthetic, our joy in life in sort of a pleasurable type of way. And so with this changing signs, going from the airy, sociable sign of Gemini, which is somewhat scattered and unfocused, but also, a diversity of ideas. And maybe you've noticed, like if you're on social media, because I think social media would be to some extent ruled by Venus because it's social, maybe also by Uranus too, but anything social has a Venus component to it. So, think about all the different ideas, like so many more ideas I think than normal, and a lot of black and whiteness too. And that's partly the air sign of Gemini likes to explore different possibilities, and so it's very diffusive. But now with Venus entering Cancer and changing signs, which it will only stay in there for, I think it's about 3 weeks. Did I make a note about that? Yes. Or maybe I didn't make a note about that. I'd have to look that up. It's a few weeks at least, okay? So 3 to 4 weeks. But so starting on the day that this video will come out, on August 7th, Friday, August 7th, Venus will move into Cancer, and this is a much more watery sign than Gemini. So Cancer is first of all, you've got to think elementally. Don't just think about what the sign means, think elementally what element the sign is and how we're shifting an elemental focus here. So we're moving from that diffused, airy energy, which likes to experiment and experience things in the world from all these different perspectives. We're moving into the watery energy, which is much more deep. And, it also circulates and flows, but in a heavier kind of way. So I think that, overall the social vibe might become more emotional, which, isn't always a good thing necessarily, but it can be, if we're approaching it with authenticity and depth. But also in the sign of Cancer, we're probably going to be a little less outwardly social because it will become more about moving inward. Cancer is a sign of moving inward, and some would even say, it is the sign of home and family and your actual house. So socializing then becomes about connecting back with your family or being at home and much smaller groups. And to some extent, Cancer is a very protectionist sign, self-protecting, like the crab, that is its symbol. It carries its home on its back and it has the shell. So we may be feeling a little bit of the need to retreat into the shell, although there's other fiery energies that are going to balance this. So I don't predict that we'll all be moving completely into our shell, or not voluntarily at least. I mean, I know there's, stay-at-home orders going around and stuff, so I guess if you are forced to stay in, that's different. But we may feel the need to go more within, even if we're also energized in some other ways and, want to be active and be out and about. We may also feel at the same time, you may feel the need to attune with your inner self, your deep self. And Cancer is, to me, not just a sign of the family. It is that, yes. So, maybe this is a time to concentrate on your children, if you have children, especially small children, or your inner child, actually, for that matter. But Cancer, to me, is a sign of the tribe, whatever your actual spiritual tribe is. So it's interesting to me that a lot of these spiritual people that I know, which is going to be a lot of those of you watching this video, I mean, some of us have really good relationships with our family and feel strongly connected to them. But even for those of us that have that, a lot of us feel like our family doesn't totally get us, so we have over here like our spiritual family. You know what I mean? And unfortunately for some on the spiritual path, or maybe it's not unfortunate, it's just karma. For some of us, we don't connect at all with our families, or maybe our family has all passed on, or we don't know our family, but we still have our spiritual family. And going even deeper with this idea, because I'd like to really go not just on the surface level, okay, but go into the deeper spiritual dimensions of this movement of Venus into Cancer. What is family? Who are your family? I mean, is it only blood relatives? Is it your spiritual family? The people that that believe the same, or that you share ideals with, which is a very Aquarian energy, I guess, for me to say that. But what about your spirit guides, and what about your ancestors and those spirit, vibrations that we are connected with throughout time? Are they not also part of your family? So you can work with these energies on a lot of different levels. You see what I'm saying? And listen, it's okay if you just want to work with it on the mundane level, and you're like, hey, I'm going to use this time that Venus is in Cancer for the next few weeks to clean my house and to cook and appreciate my family, and or even work with the inner child, and that would be great. But you can go deeper. And Cancer is a very intuitive sign too, so this is a good time for working on that deep intuitive sense. I would just caution or add a recommendation that it's also a good time for remembering not to be overly self-protective. I mean, yes, go within to your cocoon if you need to, and I think we all need to do that sometimes. But don't let your cocoon become armor, or at least if it is armor, let it be armor that you can remember how to take on and off as you need to. As you see, I'm wearing a Nordic shirt. This is a representation of Freya, the goddess Freya, in her battle maiden role, and so she has her armored helmet and her breastplate, so she wears armor. But do you know that Freya is like the Nordic Venus? So she's also the sensual goddess of love. So she knows how to take the armor off and be sensual and loving and caring and warm. These are all parts of ourselves that are part of the spiritual fire. And that ties in with some of the other energies this week, because we still have the sun moving through Leo. We have Mars in Aries. And actually later towards the end of this forecast, so this will be on Sunday, I believe that's August 16th, the sun and Mars will make an exact trine, but really it's pretty much in effect for this whole forecast ahead, this whole next week, because it's moving closer and closer towards it. And this is the spiritual fire. I mean, we have sun in Leo, which is its home, and Mars in Aries, which is its home. So they're both in their home fiery signs, and they're making a trine, which is kind of like getting together and getting along really good. You want to put that in social language. So they're boosting each other up. They're supporting each other. They're feeding the fire. So don't be surprised, especially if around next weekend, really even from the middle of the week on ahead, you may feel a boon of idealism and inspiration and even physical energy, libido, just kind of that zest for life, that get up and go mojo, right? This is one of those aspects that can improve one's mojo. So especially for you fire signs out there, if you are an Aries, a Leo, or a Sagittarius, or if you're like me, and that's not my sun sign, but I have planets in some of these signs, right, in my birth chart. So if you have some fiery energies in Aries, Sagittarius, or Leo naturally, then you're going to get a boon from this. Now, for those of you who have the watery signs, the Cancers, the Scorpios, the Pisces, you may feel a very nice forward-moving current with Venus entering Cancer. It can be a more fortunate time for you. Venus is kind of the lesser luck planet. It brings us some luck, or it can. So it's going to be bringing a little bit more of that towards the water signs. Not that the fire signs will make their own luck this week because they'll have that energy of, that Sun and Mars together in Leo and Aries. But no reason why we can't all tune into the inner fire, right? Because we all have all 12 signs somewhere, and no reason why we can't all go with the current of Venus and Cancer. So those are some big things happening this week. Now there is one more big thing, and I think I might have to do a separate video on that. But this is also later, not on Sunday, but on Saturday. So Saturday, August 15th, we're going to have Uranus go retrograde. And it's going to remain retrograde for the rest of this year into January of 2021. And it's always interesting, around the time Uranus goes retrograde, and I mean, when I say around the time, I mean for about 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, I have noticed that there are more international conflicts or crazy things that break out, like, war or terrorism. And it's interesting to me, too, with the full moon having just taken place last week. And, sadly, I mean, we had the bombing or the explosion in Lebanon. All these are kind of lining up. So these are what I would call the shadow side of Uranus energies, because Uranus is a revolutionary, right? And if, revolutions get to the point where the ends justified the means, then we have bombings and killings and things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is I've noticed in the past that about 2 weeks before Uranus goes retrograde, and I should add 2 weeks after, so there's kind of a month-long time frame where that shadow side of Uranus, in the geopolitical level gets activated. So, and just on a more still collective but personal level, maybe. See, Uranus is kind of the part of ourselves that is very individualistic, but also can represent our eccentricities and, it can be your uniqueness or it can be your craziness. Okay, so all of this gets triggered extra strongly around the time it goes retrograde. And I know that may not make sense because you think retrograde's kind of like going to sleep almost, or backwards. But it seems maybe not when it first goes retrograde for a planet, it amps it up in a sort of challenging way. So, if you feel very impulsive and like desperate that you have to do something, I would advise you to challenge that idea in yourself and to not do things right now, generally speaking, out of a desperate, impulsive feeling. I think that may not be good. I mean, maybe it's never as good, but especially right now, okay? It might lead you to do some unwise things. And now, on the other hand, if you have a true intuition, a mental breakthrough, an insight from the higher mind, and these will be stimulated too on this higher level, right? So, if you're able to step out of ego for a few minutes and, get centered and aligned, or like I just say it, step into the heart field, step into the loving field. If you're able to do that, into that field of, pure oneness, of caring, but it's a center point. It's the center point, right? It's very calm. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can think of it. Higher mind, being centered, being in the heart space, stepping out of ego. If you're able to do that, then you may find there are great breakthroughs right now. And especially you might get new insights and revelations for the next 2 weeks regarding sudden changes in things that have been happening in the past for you, or even disruptions, or maybe there were situations that you had rebelled against in the past, that you had resisted, and now you're going to see those situations differently, which could mean still rebelling, but maybe understanding more about what you're standing for. Or it could mean that you don't have to rebel against it anymore. I mean, just be mindful of any unrest that you have within during this time. And a lot of times people may think their unrest is coming from like someone else or some outer situation, but often it might be coming from something within themselves. An example, I had a person write me recently, and a client, we were doing a reading about a relationship situation, and I can't go into many of the details, but I'll just say that, she had a relationship situation with her man, maybe talking to another person and another woman, and wondering, if that's, actually just, well, what that is, but, telling me that she's very unhappy and all this. But here's the bottom line. I mean, she's unhappy because she's not following her path. I mean, yes, they need to take care of this relationship situation, but, she wouldn't feel so desperate and clingy and worried about this if she was empowering herself in her own path. So that's part of the wisdom of Uranus. It says, get out there, live your purpose, live your path, be the light that you are meant to be. So on that note, I think this is going to be a wrap for today's forecast video. If I need to do some more about some of this other stuff, I will. But on that note, I want all of you to do this very thing in the weeks ahead. Just get out there, live your light the best you can. And you know what? Don't worry about the stupid drama. Don't get involved in it. When you're doing your path, the drama has very little effect upon you. It's true. It's true. Until next time, I'm Psychic Cynthia, signing off, sending you love, all the love in the world, and bright blessings.